Dr. Isabella Romano had spent 15 years searching for evidence of advanced prehistoric civilizations, but nothing had prepared her for what lay before her in the frozen Siberian wilderness. The massive metal structure, partially exposed by melting permafrost, gleamed dully in the wan Arctic sunlight. Its perfectly geometric angles and seamless construction defied everything she knew about human technological development. "This shouldn't be possible," muttered Dr. Nikolai Volkov, the Russian geologist who had first alerted her to the discovery. He ran his gloved hand along the structure's smooth surface, brushing away centuries of accumulated ice. The surrounding rock strata dates back nearly 1,000,000 years. Isabella adjusted her thermal suit against the bitter cold, her breath forming crystalline clouds in the air. The research station they'd established at the site was little more than a collection of heated tents and portable equipment, but it was the most important archaeological dig she ever led. The initial ground-penetrating radar scans had revealed that this exposed section was merely the tip of something much larger buried beneath the permafrost. "Dr. Romano," called out James Patterson, their team's young archaeologist. He was waving excitedly from an excavated section several meters away. "You need to see this." Isabella made her way carefully across the icy ground, conscious of the treacherous footing. The site was remote even by Siberian standards, a full day's helicopter flight from the nearest town. Medical help, if needed, was hours away at best. James pointed his light at a section of the structure they'd managed to uncover. Intricate symbols were etched into the metal surface, arranged in precise geometric patterns. They resembled no writing system Isabella had ever encountered in her years of research. "The metal itself is unlike anything I've seen," said Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their materials scientist, examining the surface with a handheld spectrometer. "The composition doesn't match any known alloy. And look at this. No signs of oxidation or degradation, despite its age." Isabella felt a familiar thrill of discovery, tinged with something else. Unease, perhaps. The find was too perfect, too advanced. If their initial dating was correct, this structure had been built hundreds of thousands of years before humans had even learned to make stone tools. As the team worked to document their discovery, Isabella noticed something odd about the local wildlife. Arctic foxes and snow hares gathered at the perimeter of their site, watching with unusual intensity. Even the normally shy wolves could be glimpsed between the stunted trees, their eyes reflecting the work lights in eerie green pinpoints. That evening, huddled in the main research tent, Isabella reviewed the day's findings with her core team. The structure appeared to extend at least 50 meters into the permafrost, with no clear indication of its full size. Ground-penetrating radar suggested the presence of chambers or rooms within, but the metal's unique properties made detailed scanning impossible. "We need to find a way inside," Nikolai insisted, spreading out the preliminary survey maps. The structure's depth and composition suggest it was meant to be accessed from above, not buried. There must be an entrance. "I agree," said James, "but we need to be cautious. The symbols we found, they look like warnings to me. See how they're arranged around this central pattern. It's reminiscent of danger markings found in other ancient sites." Isabella was about to respond when a low rumble shook the ground, causing their equipment to rattle. Outside, the gathered animals suddenly scattered into the darkness. The tremor lasted only seconds, but it left everyone on edge. "Just normal seismic activity," Nikolai said quickly, though he didn't sound convinced. "This region has a history of minor earthquakes." Isabella wasn't so sure. As she lay in her cot that night, unable to sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, not just by the animals, but by something else. Something that had waited a very long time in the ice. The next morning brought new challenges. The excavation team reported that the tremor had shifted something in the structure, revealing a deep crevice along one side. Cold air flowed from the opening, carrying a strange metallic scent that made Isabella's head spin. As she stood at the edge of the crevice, shining her light into its depths, Isabella realized they had reached a point of no return. Whatever secrets this structure held, whatever warnings its builders had left, they were about to be revealed. She only hoped they were ready for what they might find. The rest of the team gathered around, their excitement palpable. But Isabella noticed that Yuki, who had been analyzing samples of the metal all morning, looked troubled. The radiation readings, Yuki said quietly, showing Isabella her instruments. They're subtle, but they're increasing. Whatever this structure is, it's not just ancient, it's active. The descent into the structure's opening was treacherous, but Isabella insisted on being the first one down. They had rigged a temporary pulley system, and now she dangled in the darkness, her headlamp casting strange shadows on the metallic walls. The crevice descended nearly 30 meters before opening into what appeared to be a corridor. Radiation levels are holding steady. Yuki's voice crackled through the radio. But there's something else. The electromagnetic readings are fluctuating wildly. Isabella's boots touched the ground with a soft thud that echoed through the corridor. The air was surprisingly dry and cold, carrying that same metallic taste she'd noticed before. Her instruments showed the temperature at a constant -5 degrees Celsius, regardless of depth, unusual for a subterranean structure. James joined her minutes later, followed by Nikolai. The Russian geologist immediately began examining the walls with his specialized equipment. "This metal," he muttered, "it seems to be conducting some kind of energy. But that's impossible after all this time." The corridor stretched before them, perfectly straight and unmarred by time. Their lights revealed more of the mysterious symbols, but here they were different, more complex, arranged in patterns that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. "Look at this," James called out, his voice filled with wonder. He was examining what appeared to be a control panel embedded in the wall. The surface was smooth and black, without any visible buttons or switches. "It reminds me of modern touchscreen technology, but that's impossible," Isabella finished. "Like everything else we're seeing." She reached out to touch the panel, then hesitated. Years of archaeological experience had taught her caution, but something about this place demanded investigation. Her fingers brushed the surface, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft hum, lines of light began to trace through the metal walls, following the patterns of the symbols. The effect spread like a wave, illuminating the corridor in a pale blue glow. "Everyone stay calm," Isabella ordered, though her own heart was racing. "Yuki, are you getting this?" "Yes," came the response, tinged with static. "Power surge detected. But the source, it's like nothing we've seen before. The energy signature doesn't match any known power source." As the lights stabilized, they revealed something they hadn't noticed before. The corridor wasn't just a passage. It was more like a gallery, with regularly spaced alcoves along both walls. Each alcove contained what appeared to be some kind of display, though most were dark and inactive. Nikolai approached one of the alcoves, his scientific curiosity overtaking his caution. "These look like some kind of information storage system. See how the symbols are arranged. They're not just decorative, they're functional." Isabella was about to respond when a sudden change in air pressure made her ears pop. A low-frequency vibration began to pulse through the structure, and the blue light flickered momentarily. "We should go back," James said, his earlier excitement replaced by concern. "At least until we can get proper safety equipment down here." But Isabella knew they couldn't leave, not now. "Look," she said, pointing to one of the activated displays. The symbols were moving, rearranging themselves into new patterns, and something about them seemed almost familiar. "They're not random," she realized, her voice barely a whisper. "They're transforming, adapting. The system is trying to communicate with us." The vibration increased, and loose ice crystals began to fall from the ceiling. Through her radio, she could hear Yuki's increasingly worried voice reporting major electromagnetic disturbances. James was recording everything with their high-resolution camera when he noticed something that made him freeze. "Dr. Romano, the symbols. They're starting to form into something we can read. Isabella moved closer, her breath catching in her throat. The shifting patterns were indeed taking on a more recognizable form, not quite any known human language, but something that seemed to bridge the gap between the alien symbols and modern text. It's some kind of translation matrix, Nikolai said in awe. The system must have archived data on human language development. It's trying to find common ground. As they watched, the first recognizable words began to form on the display. RCHIVXCESS guaranteed. Caution. Quarantine protocols remain active. The message hung in the air, its implications sending a chill through Isabella that had nothing to do with the temperature. Before anyone could speak, new words appeared. DETCTED. Human presence. Initiating security scan. A soft red light swept through the corridor, passing over each of them in turn. When it reached Isabella, she felt a slight tingling sensation, as if every cell in her body was being examined. Scan complete, the display showed. Geniteki markiores co-environment. Warning. Level 5 containment breach imminent. The vibrations suddenly stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. In that moment, Isabella realized they had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. Whatever this facility was, whoever had built it, they had left it with safeguards that were now responding to human presence for the first time in countless millennia. Through her radio, Yuki's voice came through in broken fragments. Dr. Romano. Something's happening. The energy readings. Exponential increase. You need to. The transmission cut off as all their equipment simultaneously went dead, leaving them in the pale blue glow of the activated corridor. In the distance, they heard the unmistakable sound of ancient machinery coming to life. The ancient machinery's awakening sent vibrations through the entire structure, accompanied by the sound of massive gears and mechanisms shifting deep below. Isabella and her team stood frozen in the blue-lit corridor as sections of the wall began to move, realigning themselves like pieces of an elaborate puzzle. Look, James pointed to where the corridor ahead was transforming. The metal panels slid apart with precision that seemed impossible for their age, revealing a new passage that sloped downward into darkness. Surface team, do you copy? Isabella tried her radio again, but only static answered. The electromagnetic disturbance had completely isolated them underground. She made a quick decision. We need to move forward. Whatever's happening, we're part of it now. Nikolai checked his handheld instruments. The power readings are off the scale, but they're stable. No radiation spikes. If anything, the ambient radiation has decreased. They proceeded down the new passage, their footsteps echoing on the metal floor. The walls here were different, covered in what appeared to be detailed technical schematics. James photographed everything with their backup camera, though Isabella wondered if the electromagnetic interference would corrupt the data. The passage opened into a vast chamber that took their breath away. The ceiling arched at least 30 meters overhead, supported by columns that pulsed with the same blue light as the corridors. But it was what lay in the center that made them stop in their tracks. A massive spherical structure dominated the chamber, suspended in a complex framework of metallic arms and energy conduits. Its surface was a perfect mirror, reflecting their lights and the blue glow of the chamber in distorted patterns. It's some kind of containment vessel, Nikolai said, consulting his instruments. The energy readings are concentrated here, but they're inverted somehow, like it's containing an absence rather than a presence. Isabella approached the sphere cautiously. As she drew closer, she noticed that its surface wasn't perfectly smooth. It was covered in microscopic versions of the symbols they'd seen throughout the facility, arranged in concentric patterns of dizzying complexity. Dr. Romano, James called out, his voice tense. He was examining one of several control stations arranged around the sphere. More translations are appearing. The implications of those words sent a chill through Isabella's spine. This wasn't just an archaeological site. It was a prison, or perhaps a quarantine facility, built by an advanced civilization to contain something they couldn't destroy. Suddenly, the sphere's surface rippled like liquid mercury, and for a brief moment, Isabella thought she saw something move within its depths. A darkness deeper than the absence of light, a shape that seemed to defy the laws of geometry. "The power systems," Nikolai said urgently, examining another control panel. "They're not just active. They're failing. Whatever containment field they're generating is breaking down after all this time." James had moved to another station, where more text was appearing. "ATTNTYON. Facility AI partially restored. Seeking authorized personal for emergency protocols. Genetic SKN. Eindeutig HCC Pictable Mekich. In Puricy humans. Acceptable match. Isabella repeated. "What does that mean?" The answer came in the form of a holographic display that materialized in front of them, showing what appeared to be a DNA double helix alongside complex mathematical formulae. The image shifted, revealing a progression of human evolution spanning hundreds of thousands of years. "They knew," Isabella whispered, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. "The builders of this place, they knew what humanity would become. They were preparing for this moment." The sphere pulsed with a sudden intensity, and new text scrolled across every display in the chamber. "Critical decision required. Containment failure imminent. Accept emergency protocol activation." Below this message, two options appeared. Option 1. Initiate emergency containment renewal. Warning. Requires human biological interface. Option 2. Execute facility purge protocol. Warning. Regional destruction inevitable. The countdown continued on a separate display. 38 minutes remaining. Isabella looked at her colleagues, seeing her own mix of fear and determination reflected in their faces. They had come seeking knowledge of humanity's past, but instead had stumbled upon what might be the most important moment in its future. The sphere rippled again, more violently this time, and in its mercurial surface, Isabella caught another glimpse of what lay within. Something that should not exist in their universe, something that ancient humans had given everything to contain. And now, millennia later, their descendants would have to choose whether to take up that burden, or let whatever was contained here break free into an unsuspecting world. The chamber's blue light pulsed in sync with the deteriorating containment field as Isabella and her team faced the impossible choice before them. The countdown displayed 35 minutes, each second bringing them closer to a decision that would affect not just their lives, but potentially the fate of humanity. "We need to contact the surface team," James insisted, still trying to get their communications working. "We can't make this kind of decision alone." Nikolai shook his head, his eyes fixed on the shifting surface of the sphere. "There's no time. Look at these readings. The containment field is collapsing faster than predicted. We might have less than 30 minutes. Isabella moved closer to one of the control stations, studying the streams of data now flowing across its surface. The facility's AI was providing more information about both options, and neither was comforting. The biological interface required for containment renewal wasn't just a simple DNA sample or tissue connection. According to the specifications scrolling past, it would require a complete neural link with a human host, a permanent fusion of consciousness with the facility's systems. Whoever interfaces would become part of the containment system, Isabella explained, her voice tight. Their mind would be used to reinforce the psychological barriers keeping that thing contained. They'd be conscious, but trapped here, forever. The alternative, the purge protocol, would trigger what appeared to be a controlled antimatter reaction, destroying everything within a 50-kilometer radius. The facility's systems had calculated that this would be sufficient to eliminate the entity, but at the cost of obliterating the entire research site and the surrounding wilderness. The sphere rippled again, more violently this time. Through its surface, Isabella caught glimpses of something that made her mind recoil. Geometric patterns that seemed to fold through impossible dimensions, shadows that moved against the laws of physics. "We're getting more data about what's inside," Nikolai reported, his scientific curiosity warring with obvious fear. "The entity appears to be some kind of spatial anomaly, a tear in the fabric of reality itself. The builders discovered it, but couldn't destroy it. All they could do was contain it." "But why here?" James asked, photographing the new information appearing on the displays. "Why build this facility in Siberia?" More text appeared, answering his question. "Location CLECTEF or minimal PUPLATIONDNCIT. Containment FAILURE CONTING ENCYREQUIR is minimal civilian casualties." The ancient builders had chosen this remote location deliberately, knowing that someday the containment might fail. They had planned for every contingency, including the possibility that their descendants would have to make this terrible choice. Isabella felt the weight of history pressing down on her. The builders had left this responsibility to humanity, to her team, for a reason. They must have seen something in the human species that gave them hope, some potential that made them believe we could handle this burden. The sphere pulsed again, and this time the entire chamber shook. Warning messages flashed across every display. Containment the accelerating. 25 minutes to critical failure. "We need to decide," Nikolai said grimly. "Whatever that thing is, we can't let it escape. The Purge Protocol would kill everyone at the surface camp," Isabella cut him off, "and destroy priceless archaeological evidence. There has to be another way." James had been quiet, studying the technical specifications of the neural interface. "The interface doesn't specify that it has to be permanent," he said slowly. "Look at these parameters. It's possible that multiple people could share the burden, taking shifts." Before he could finish, the sphere's surface became completely transparent for a brief moment. Through it, they saw what looked like a hole in space itself, a window into somewhere else, somewhere that operated under different laws of physics. The sight lasted only seconds, but it left them all shaken. Isabella made her decision. She stepped toward the main control panel, her hand hovering over the interface activation sequence. "I'll do it. I'm the team leader. This is my responsibility." "Isabella, wait." Nikolai grabbed her arm. "We don't know enough about this technology. The risks are less than the risk of letting that thing escape," she finished, "or killing everyone on the surface. The builders left this choice to us for a reason. They believed we could handle it." The chamber shook again, more violently this time. The countdown now showed 20 minutes, but the displays were warning that the containment field was degrading faster than predicted. Isabella placed her hand on the control panel. Text appeared beneath it. "Neural interface, INITIALIS ATIONCQNC activated. Warning. Virus estas que to be revercd once begun. Confirm." She took a deep breath, thinking of everything that had led her to this moment. Years of research, of searching for evidence of advanced prehistoric civilizations. She had found what she was looking for, but not in any way she could have imagined. As her finger moved to confirm the sequence, a new message flashed across the displays. ALERT. Secondary Protocol, DTECTE. Alternative solution available. The sphere's surface rippled one final time, and in its depths, something changed, something that would reveal the true purpose of this facility and the real choice they needed to make. The chamber hummed with new energy as displays lit up around them, revealing the true nature of what the ancient builders had created. The secondary protocol wasn't just an alternative. It was the real purpose of the facility all along. "Look at this," Nikolay breathed, studying the new data streaming across the screens. The containment field wasn't just holding the entity back. It was studying it, learning from it. Isabella's hand remained frozen above the interface controls as she read the revelation unfolding before them. The builders hadn't just been containing a threat. They had been preparing for this exact moment, using the trapped entity to develop something unprecedented. Secondary protocol purpose. The display read, "Conversion of spatial anomaly into stable dimensional gate. Warning, requires simultaneous activation by multiple human operators." The sphere's surface shifted again, but this time, the patterns were different, more ordered, more purposeful. The impossible geometries they had glimpsed were being transformed into something their minds could comprehend. They weren't just hoping we would contain it, Isabella realized. They were waiting for humanity to reach a point where we could understand it, use it. James was already analyzing the new technical specifications appearing. The neural interface. It's not meant for one person. It needs 3 operators, working in harmony. The builders knew we would come as a team. The countdown continued its relentless progress. 15 minutes remaining. But now they understood why the facility had recognized their genetic markers, why it had awakened at their presence. They weren't here by accident. "If we do this together," Nikolay said, moving to one of the 3 interface stations that had emerged from the chamber floor, "we might be able to stabilize the anomaly. Turn it from a threat into a tool." Isabella studied the calculations flowing across the screens. The builders had spent millennia using the contained entity to develop this technology, waiting for the day when their descendants would return with the right combination of scientific knowledge and human consciousness to complete their work. The sphere pulsed again, but the chaos within it was beginning to show patterns, mathematical constants that Isabella recognized from their own scientific discoveries. The entity wasn't just a tear in spacetime. It was a window into the fundamental nature of reality itself. 10 minutes, James announced, taking position at another interface station. "We need to decide now." Isabella looked at her colleagues, her friends, and saw in their eyes the same mix of fear and determination she felt. This was what they had trained for, what their entire careers had led to, even if they hadn't known it. "Together," she said, moving to the final station. "The builders believed in humanity's potential. Let's prove them right." They placed their hands on the interfaces simultaneously. The neural link activated instantly, and Isabella felt her consciousness expand. She was aware of James and Nikolay's minds joining with hers, their combined knowledge and experience merging with the facility's ancient systems. Through their shared awareness, they could finally see the builder's vision in its entirety. The entity wasn't just a spatial anomaly. It was a key to understanding the universe itself. And now, after nearly 1,000,000 years of preparation, humanity had reached the point where it could turn that key. The sphere's surface began to crystallize, its mercurial chaos resolving into structured patterns. Through their neural link, the team guided the transformation, using their combined understanding of physics, archaeology, and human nature to bridge the gap between ancient wisdom and modern science. With 1 minute remaining on the countdown, the chamber filled with a light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The entity's chaotic energy was being channeled, transformed, controlled. What had been a threat to reality itself was becoming a doorway to new understanding. As the final seconds ticked away, Isabella felt a presence in their shared consciousness, an echo of the builders themselves, watching through time as their plan came to fruition. They had believed in humanity's potential, had seen in our species the capacity to transcend our limitations and reach for the stars. The countdown reached 0. The sphere's surface shattered like glass, but instead of destruction, it revealed a perfectly stable portal, a gateway to possibilities that would forever change human understanding of the universe. As their neural link gently dissolved, Isabella, James, and Nikolai found themselves standing before their species' greatest discovery and greatest responsibility. The builders had left them not just knowledge, but a choice about how to use it. Through the portal, they could glimpse realities beyond imagination. Other dimensions, other possibilities, other versions of existence itself. But more importantly, they had proven that humanity was ready for such knowledge. The facility's final message appeared on the displays. Evolution complete. Humanity prepared. The next journey begins. Isabella looked at her teammates, now bound by an experience that would forever set them apart from the rest of humanity. They had come seeking evidence of humanity's past, but had instead discovered the key to its future. The question was no longer about containing or destroying the unknown. It was about how to share this discovery with a world that might not be ready for it. But that, Isabella realized, was exactly the kind of challenge the builders had prepared them for. Above ground, the strange gathering of animals had dispersed, their vigil complete. The ancient warning system was no longer needed. Humanity had passed its test, proving itself worthy of the legacy left buried in the Siberian ice. As the team began documenting their discovery, Isabella touched the transformed sphere one last time. In its crystalline surface, she saw not just her own reflection, but the reflection of all human potential, past, present, and future, united in an endless journey of discovery.